Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I am here to give you a review of a film, The Tomorrow Wars. I think it's The Tomorrow War, or is it an S on the end? I can't remember. It's The Tomorrow Wars. It's an Amazon Prime original movie, and honestly, I had not been hyped for this movie. I've heard about this movie for a while, and it's clearly a movie that got delayed just like every other movie, but I had heard about it. And honestly, it never impressed me, knowing that Chris Pratt in it. Because Chris Pratt isn't that guy. Like, even with The Rock, I don't watch everything he's in, Because Chris Pratt had this stretch of time where he was just in shit because he was Chris Pratt. And while I'll admit, Chris Pratt is probably the best part in terms of the character in this movie, because every other character in this movie is just kind of a type. But Chris Pratt's still a type, but, he's Chris Pratt. He's like a slightly different, he's like a slightly more mature, more militaristic version of Chris Pratt. But he's still Chris Pratt in this film. This movie is aiming to be Independence Day. It's a film that is almost a time capsule film, because when you watch the movie, at least when I was watching the movie, I was like, this feels like a film from the 90s. Like, it feels like a film from the mid-90s that just happens to have fairly decent, much better, in comparison, CGI. But it feels like a film from the 90s. And, like, in most of the... And I mean that, and sometimes I say that in a positive way, but this time I kind of mean that in a negative way. It is kind of cheesy in terms of the way they go about doing a lot of things in this movie. This is a movie that... When I was watching it, I had just said I started a new list called Great Idea, or I can't remember, Great Idea, Bad Execution. This is another kind of movie like that, where there are astonishing, that's why I ended up watching the movie, because I was so fascinated with all the ideas that they were playing with. They play with time. So the short and skinny of it is, an alien invasion happens in the year 2055. We don't know why, we don't know what. And this ain't like aliens, like War of the World aliens. It's like creatures. It's kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, shit. Just saw the movie, Quiet Place. Kind of like Quiet Place. Like, these aliens are just killing people. They're just eating people. Well, these aliens are eating people. They're just going around. They're like bugs, really. They're more bugs than actual, like... They're bug-like creatures that multiply extremely quickly, and basically, they pretty much wiped off almost everyone off the face of the earth in a very short time. And they are in the year, and they start in the year. I can't remember if they start in the year 2055 or it got kind of confusing in there because the way they word a lot of things in here. The movie itself is a very confusing mess of a movie, but. For some reason, but either way, the war is happening in 2055 with these creatures. So, they figure out time travel. Somehow. They really don't get into how they figured out time travel, or how, because the movie, that only in, what would that be, like 30 years we figure out time travel, essentially? We figure out time travel under distress. Like, okay, sure. But somehow we figure out time travel, and we figure out that we can go back before the events of this, we can go back 30, they go back 30 years, or I think it's 30 years. My math is correct, something like that. Like 34 years, something like that, and warn people that this will happen, and while warning them, bring people from that time back to fight in the war. If this sounds confusing, that's because it is. Nothing really makes sense. Why do they have to go back and get people to bring them to the war? Couldn't they just prevent this thing from happening altogether? People, they try to make some type of social commentary about the draft and how that would affect social norms and whatnot, but when you get right down to it, the sci-fi of it all is kind of fascinating with the time travel, and their time travel is with the unique. I'm about to say uniquity, the uniqueness of their time travel, about how it's just like almost like that timeline didn't happen, but the timeline, it did happen. So like it's weird. Like I said, I did think the idea of certain people being able to even go back is fascinating. Like, you have to be a certain age to be able to go back, because you have to have died because if you go now, then other people who are born won't be born. So it's weird. Like, I thought those were fascinating concepts. I even thought the creatures themselves looked kind of cool. They look cool. They had claw. They look nasty. They could do a lot of variety of things. And it wasn't a Quiet Place situation where these things can't swim. It was tangible that these things could take over the world, that these things could kill everything on Earth in a very quick fashion. Because of how quickly they multiply, the fact that they can swim, not just swim, I mean, they can swim. Not like they're under the water, and no. These things can zoom. And even the idea that these things, even when they got into the details of these things actually being like weapons for an alien race that accidentally crash landed here. There's also kind of a bit of a message about global warming because the aliens landed in a location that is currently melting, in real life, that is currently melting. I think it was in Russia somewhere in Russia that is currently melting now, and they're like, they just projected it forward. They're like, yeah, in like 30 years, that whole area is going to be water, and whatever, and if something was buried there, like an alien spaceship, shit might break loose. And essentially that's why it happened. And they thought it was some shit like where aliens would just come in, like they just landed out of nowhere. Turns out they've been there for thousands of years. Like I said, they're mixing a lot of things. There's a bit of John Carpenter with the whole alien spaceship that was lodged in ice that was already there. There's a bit of Quiet Place with these wild animals, these creatures that you can't escape and run from. There's a lot of things going on. Honestly, this movie might be a better video game than an actual movie. Because if you think about it, that'd be kind of a cool game. Fighting off, like you going back in time and fighting these creatures and going on different missions and fighting these creatures. But unfortunately, I guess it wouldn't be that cool because there's really only 2 different ones. There's just the one female, which kind of crazy to think that many of them came from one chick, but it is an alien specimen, so a biologically engineered specimen, which kind of makes a little sense to why I was able also to do that. And so we don't even know. Like, that's the more curious question. If they ever made a sequel, which they wouldn't, but if they did make a sequel, I don't think they will because of the response to this movie. It would be kind of curious to see, like, because it's kind of brought up, like, they crash landed here with these, things and cargo, but so, like, these things that they drop off, and on the ship, like, I thought that it was just, like, 6 of them, and the Queen just multiplied them. No. They had hundreds of thousands of those things on that ship. They basically were prepared to launch hundreds of thousands of them off the ship and wipe out this the planet they want to. I mean, talk about biological warfare. But I digress. We don't know if they actually meant to drop this on Earth. I mean, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Either way, it did happen. Which, if they meant to, means that another alien spaceship's gonna come back around and be like, hey, we didn't drop that bomb, let's drop another one and do it again. But I digress. That's not really the topic of the movie. It's okay. It's a movie that's concepts are better than the actual film itself. It's a film where all the characters in it are just types. Like, only character who remotely worth a damn is really Chris Pratt. And that's it. And that's because you know Chris Pratt, you like Chris Pratt. He's really the only character worth a damn, at least to me personally. Every other character in this movie is just like a type. It's like they're a thing, and sometimes they can even be annoying. They really try to go for the Independence Day vibe. It really feels like a movie from a different time period. There's a lot of things that don't make a lick of sense that if you think about too long, you really don't make sense. For the life of me, and the big one that didn't make sense to me is, at the end of the movie, they capture the Queen because they figure, hey, if we can come up with a toxin that can kill, because the Queen, if we can come up with a toxin to kill the Queen, we can come up with a toxin to kill them all. And I'm thinking gas. You know what? I'm thinking some shit they can just like put on some jets or something, and the jets just drop it all over the Earth, and they just drop gas all over the Earth, and it just starts killing all those motherfuckers. But that's not what they do. It's like a liquid thing that's like you have to inject directly, which I was like, well, fuck, that sucks. You might as well have just blown the ship up. Literally, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, like, they would have been better off blowing the ship up. But I digress. Near the tail end. That doesn't even make any sense anymore. But why would you keep this creature that you know can alert all the other creatures to come save it on the same base that you have the one and only time travel device? They got one, and they kept it on the same base. Because if things go wrong, and, like, they come and save this creature and you guys can't get the whatever in time, at the very least, you guys can still time travel. It's like, we still got the time travel device. We can still go back in time and be like, hey man, this is all we can do. It's not working. You know what I mean? There's still a chance. But they don't even do that. They don't even do that. Like, they keep it all on the same base. So when they get attacked, the time travel device is destroyed. She's I digress. The movie itself, what is it? What would I give this film? Because because I didn't hate it, and I wasn't fairly entertained by it, I suppose, but I asked more questions than I was entertained, and the entertainment part were very fleeting and just sporadic, like firecrackers going off. I'd give this movie a 5.5. It's a 5.5 to a 6. It's a decent movie. You're not missing anything if you don't see it. Like, it's not like you're not missing anything if you don't see it. If you see it, cool. Has some interesting concept. I mean, the only reason I got any joy out of it was because I'm a fan of sci-fi, so I got kind of a kick out of the interesting sci-fi things they were doing in it. But the movie itself really isn't that interesting. It really isn't that good. I've seen the concept and I've seen things done better. It's a movie that's out of its time period. Like, just the vibe they were going for was so like mid 80s, like honestly, like mid 80s and mid 90s, my bad, mid 90s, like Independence Day, fucking, Stargate. Like, they were going for this like old school style, and it just didn't work. It got overly complicated with the time travel that really didn't make a lick of sense when you really stopped back and thought about it. And like I said, I just, and it was just hard to believe that they would even invent time travel. How would they do that so quickly? But you know what? I digress. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining my Comic Game Movie Show. Have you seen the Tomorrow War? What did you think about it? What did you think about Chris Pratt? What did you think about it? Are you going to check it out? I'd be like, if you're into sci-fi, it's worth a glance. It's 2 hours, and you feel every minute of that 2 hours. So, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll dig it. I've seen some people who dig it. But personally, I think it's just like, it's all right. Anyways, thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Movie Show. Please remember to like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.